with my speaker system right now. But, okay. So, folks, if someone could let me know if that clip played all scrambled, because I was getting some severe scrambling here. I might have just lost my... how you doing, Gary? See you over on Facebook. Got Canada in the house today. Gary and Danny, both Canada. So, God bless. Welcome aboard. We're talking about Matt Lao. Matthew Lao is a bioethicist, one of the most influential bioethicists in the world. I just played a clip from him discussing how he believes that we can engineer human beings to help save the planet. And one of the ways that he actually talks about doing it is to actually make us smaller, make our children smaller. And it's wild what this guy talks about. So, and he also has a plan for us to stop eating meat as well. So it's you gotta hear this. So first of all, he wants to make kids shorter. All right, that's a thing where he wants to make them shorter, and and by that he would make them shorter and lighter, because they wouldn't be as tall, and therefore transportation and other types of ways to move people around would require less energy. Yeah.
Such excellent and admirable hobbits.
Yes, he wants us all to be excellent and admirable hobbits. So here's him getting into what he means by engineering us to have smaller children.
So here's an idea, says Lao at the World Science Festival. Let's fiddle with the human genome to see if we can make human children smaller than they are now. A race of dwarfs. They would eat less, and they'd be cheaper to transport. And that would reduce greenhouse gases.
So it turns out that the larger you are, think of the lifetime sort of greenhouse gas emissions that are required to sort of the energy that's required to transport larger people rather than smaller people, right? But if we're smaller just by 15 centimeters, right? That's a mass, I did the math, and it's about mass reduction of 25%, which is huge. And 100 years ago, we're all on the average smaller, exactly about 15 centimeters smaller, right? So think of just the, like lifetime greenhouse gas emissions if we had smaller children, right? And so that's something that we could do.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. Sorry, this new stuff doesn't automatically mute and go back on, so I got to do it manually, and I'm not in the habit. So, all right, so I just showed the clip. I hope the clip played well. And basically what this guy is saying is, and his position, by the way, is high level. So he runs an entire board of bioethics globally that is now being used by organizations like, of course, the creepy one himself in our Bond villain, Klaus Schwab, and the WEF. And this is basically the panel that they've come up with to make decisions as to what the WEF wants to do are ethical and what's not ethical. And here's the guy who heads that board. All right, just in case you think he's just some wacko scientist who just happens to be, making these crazy statements. The dude literally wants to make us hobbits. So, I mean, you can't make it up. You can't make it up. This guy is This guy is as wild as it gets. And when we get into his next one, because you know they want us to stop eating meat, whatever their fascination with bugs and eating bugs. And I've played the clips of Nicole Kidman and her little eating bugs and how delicious the crickets were and the mealworms and how gross that was, and how they're just trying to soften you up to the idea of potentially eating bugs when it's almost like they want to create, like a Matrix scenario where we're all just kind of incubated and, and just eating whatever, protein is protein, and just kind of going down that path. But we all know their fascination with stopping us from eating meat. And when you hear this guy's, so he has a plan, right? So, you may say, I'll never stop eating meat, right? Well, I don't know, though, because if you listen to Matthew, Matthew has a plan, and these things don't just come out of the air, all right? Now, this is about 2 years ago where he made these comments, but let's listen to this comment.
So here's an
So I'll give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy.
So here's an
So I'll give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat.
So here's an idea, says Lao at the World Science Festival.
Examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but so I'll give two examples. So one is that people eat too much meat, right? And if they were to cut down on their consumption on meat, then it would actually really help the planet. But people are not willing to give up meat. Yeah, some people will be willing to, but other people, they may be willing to, but they have a weakness of will. They say, wow, this steak is just too juicy. I can't do it. I'm one of those, by the way. So, so here's the thought, right? So it turns out that we know a lot about, we have these intolerance to, for example, I have milk intolerance. And some people are intolerant to crayfish. So possibly we can use human engineering to make it the case that we're intolerant to certain kinds of meat, to certain kinds of bovine proteins. And there's actually analogs of this in life. There's this thing called the Lone Star tick, where if it bites you, you'll become allergic to meat. I can sort of describe the mechanism. So that's something that we can do through human engineering. We can kind of possibly address really big world problems through human engineering. Another
Okay, so so you got the gist of what he's saying. Now he goes on to talk about, I think he mentioned the tick, that there's a tick bite, that sometimes people get tick bites and it gives them that, right? So now I don't think, and Alex Jones mentioned this too. I was thinking the same exact thing. I don't think it would be ingestible. I think the stomach acids and stuff would destroy that. But if you can get it from a tick bite, what would be the human equivalent of a tick bite? Right? Getting it injected from outside in, right? So like this is the kind of thing, whether they do this or not, or however it plays out, it's something that they're confident they can do. And it's something that should creep you the hell out, because you know that these people, especially in the US, right? We got all this extra crap in our food, right? I mean, I don't generally get meats. At very, very select places I get meats. The regular grocery store is not one of them. Costco I will sometimes get meats from, but I have a local butcher as well that I go to. I know exactly where the meat is being sourced and whatnot. But at the same time, right, the idea that if they have the capability, you should know, right? That's my point. If they have the capability and the head of the Global Ethics Board is telling you that he thinks that that's, that's something we can do, right? And not like we can do like we're capable of doing it, but like we should do, right? And so, with that, it's just crazy. It's wild. When I pulled up some clips of this guy, those videos only had like, the people had like 20 subscribers. Like, it's almost like they were just putting up the video just to get it up into the web so that others can rip it and, do whatever. But from a views perspective, like, it's just like that child, the CPS video I did about their involvement in child trafficking and whatnot. Like, all of those individual clips and news reports that I took and put into that video, even the documentary, some of those, and it was like ABC News, Fox, not Fox News, but like the local networks, right? Local ABC and stuff. But like, they would have a blockbuster story about CPS, like telling a kid to go be a prostitute, and it had like 150 views in 6 years. And I'm like, there's no way organically that happens. Like, if it's being put out there, so clearly, and I think this falls in the same category. And so I felt like, it was something that I should just come out and talk about, even though it's not the regular scheduled Wednesday Night Live. I felt, and I did need to test this software, and I apologize that some of you had to deal with, occasionally my audio's out and whatnot, because I have bad habits, and I'm getting used to now having to turn it on and off manually all the time because, the simplicity of the old stuff I was using, it was very limited in what it could do, but it was very simple. And if I played a video, it automatically muted my mic. So, like, I don't have that luxury anymore. So if I forget to unmute it and such, let me know. So I haven't figured out the chat box yet. I guess once I do finally get it figured out, there'll be a chat box up on the window that will unify all the different platforms so that you guys can like see what you're saying to each other and stuff. Just to go through some of the stuff now, there's Monsieur Balls on Twitch says they're shoving a plug up your butt to stop carbon emissions. Yeah, now that's just too funny. But we got Timothy Shago. Rumor has it Bill Gates has something that will make you sick of consuming animal protein. They already have them for alcohol. Yeah, it's a thing. It's a thing. And so, and I can tell you, I mean, I'll know if it ever happened to me, because if I love meat so much that if I ever became aversive to meat, I will know someone did something to me. Like, I will know that. But it's just a note for you to be careful because, look, do we trust these people? This is the world we live in now, right? Like, it sounds crazy. It sounds like lunacy. But this is the world we live in. And it's just like, if we're going to live in this world, we've got to take those precautions. I mean, we live in the days of just, it's like medical professionals, right? Like they just trust, like when you talk to a doctor, like they still to this day call the vaccine a vaccine, even though it doesn't operate like a vaccine in any way, shape, or form. It doesn't prevent you from getting it, and it doesn't stop you from spreading it. But it's the medical professionals are still churning that terminology, right? And it's just, it's very hard to, I mean, not all of them, right? Not all of them. Some are ringing the alarm bells. But those people are like being threatened, losing their licenses. Like, all of this has to come crumbling down eventually. There's only so long you can gaslight a free people. Like, and that's, I did that. We did Wednesday Night Live this week where I presented some of the people who lived under Mao and were pointing out the similarities in today's woke revolution to the Cultural Revolution, and it's the same thing. They don't even change the terminology in a lot of ways, and so when you see when you see these things happening, understand in the United States they've been at this for 60, 70 years. China turned around pretty quickly. The Soviet Union turned around pretty quickly. Venezuela turned around very, very quickly. Cuba, Vietnam, very, very quickly. The United States has been a harder nut for them to crack. Now, we can see their successes, right? They do own their thought process. The Marxist thought process has overly infected our universities. It has taken over Hollywood to the point where no one wants to go to the movies anymore. I mean, Disney is bleeding money. They have been for 3 years now. There's only so long that can go on before even a giant like Disney has to start selling off its assets and start, figuring out a way to make money. They seem pretty dedicated, but, Anne-Marie, how are you? Good to see you on. Says, sorry, I lost faith in the medical profession, and I used to be in it. Yeah, that's that's a common thing, right? It's a common thing, and it's not like there's bad people in it. It's just there's a point where your doctor trusts other organizations to not lie to him. To not, like there was a day where if you were a doctor, you're trying to keep current on things that are out there. It's not like as a doctor, you automatically understand COVID-19 and SARS. Like you don't, you haven't dealt with it really. It's a new, you have to rely on your traditional journals and things like that. But then you've got, you've got things getting printed in professional. I mean, The Lancet is a highly respected journal. They printed a completely bogus freaking study on hydroxychloroquine that eventually got pulled like 2 weeks later, but not before everybody in the world, including Fauci, got on the news. And it was just 2 straight weeks of straight, hydroxychloroquine will kill you. I remember Neil Cavuto looking at the camera and being like, it will kill you, And it's like the safest drug ever taken by on the CDC and other organizations' websites. It talks about how safe it is, how it's good for women, pregnant women, kids, babies, like everybody, except for like people with sclerosis or something. There's like 1 or 2 exceptions. But they were able to successfully put that lie out, and they continued to mislead the public on the effects of hydroxychloroquine as a prophylaxis for COVID, right? You had to take it in the early stages, but they knew that, so they tested it in the late stages and then said, nope, it doesn't do anything. And it's like, it's not really what anyone said it did. But it's that type of deception that causes everybody to just be like, I can't trust any of you. Like, I just can't trust any of you. So inappropriate innuendo on Twitch says, no new talking points? I think you missed the beginning there, sir, because the stuff I just put up as far as human engineering, and we just had that conversation, was fairly new. I've never talked about that before in my life. And to get back on that, keep in mind, folks, like, it's not unthinkable, right? So it's not, and that kind of is where we were going with the medical conversation, is that now that we're in this world where, and this, by the way, is a part of what subversion is, right? The idea of it, if you remember Yuri Bezmenov, is to confuse the crap out of everybody and have nobody believe any sources, right? If you're on the left, you're like, everybody's watching Fox News. If you're on the right, you're like, everybody's watching that CNN. And they are both lying to you. So the skepticism is legitimate. But the point is, is every American going to have time to go and get to the source information? Is that something that every American is going to be able to do? And the answer is no. They should, but they don't. And they won't. Right? They're going to turn to whatever podcast or a collection, right, of podcasts to try and get leads onto the next, and then go I mean, I do that myself. Like I said, I was just reading this book. This guy's name came up. I started researching him, and boom. Here we are with the top bioethicists in the world talking about turning people into hobbits and how much better that would be for the climate, right? Like, if you're so deep in the climate cult that you think it would be a great idea to bioengineer human beings to be 15 centimeters shorter so that it would use less energy to transport them, if you're that deep in, there's probably no saving you. There's probably no saving you. An inappropriate innuendo says, what's your definition of human engineering? My definition is what their definition was. So you'll have to go back and look at the clip, and his name is Matthew Lao. Okay, if you want to look him up yourself, have fun with that one. It shouldn't be that hard to pull up content. Even YouTube has a video or so on him. But he's his definition, right, and he being the world's leading bioethicist, I thought would be a good source. His definition is making, like, engineering children to make them shorter. Engineering humans so that their children's come out shorter. Engineering a pathogen, that's what I call it, a pathogen, to allow, like, similar, like you can get bitten by a tick and there's a disease you can get that makes you aversive to meat. And he's saying we can engineer that response, scientifically. Now, whether or not, he didn't say specifically if he's suggesting it be injected into you or if they could just do it to your food. My comment was, I don't think they can do it to your food. I think your stomach acid would probably knock it out, but it could be injected into you. He said, isn't that vaccines? Yeah, it kind of, well, who knows, right? Because we still don't know what the hell these vaccines are going to do and what they're, maybe, right? Maybe. I will tell you this, the key ingredient in that aversive thing piece, as far as like the tick bites and all that, I forget the name of it now, but it is found in a lot of vaccines. Now, not at high enough doses, but it's found there. So there's got to be some concern there. There's got to be some concern there. And I'll try and get the name of that. I forgot what it was. They listed it in the book, and I looked it up, and it was correct, but I forgot the name of it. I wish I could give that to you. But anyway, the point of the matter is they're out there. They're designing creepy stuff. DARPA, their research labs are and when I say their research labs in DARPA are really university labs, right? Like they just they outsource, right, their research, and I'm sure there's some really creepy stuff they do behind closed doors only. But like the stuff that they were public with, and this was 5 years ago and I posted that video maybe a month or two ago, where he was getting into detail about the capabilities that they're going to have in 60 months, which would be now, actually a little earlier than now, regarding manipulative measures to actually change people's, he gave an example that there was a general speaking and that spoke at that same thing that he was speaking in at that same event. And I guess the general had given certain points of view, and the example he gave was, I could take, when we're done, I'll be able to slip something into that general's coffee. He would come back up here on the same stage and tell you the exact opposite viewpoint that he held the first time he was up. And you would look at him like, is he gone crazy? Like, what's going on? And he was really focusing his energy on not just infecting individuals to change their mindsets, but in fact, using this kind of tactics on leaders to automatically change a mass, right? So if you've got people in mass formation, right, and there's a bunch of different mass formations going on in the country right now, a bunch, where people just blindly, they're following that leader. That leader can tell them to do whatever he wants, and it's dangerous as hell, but they're going to follow because their faith is almost friggin' religious-like. And so, his theory was we could take this. Now, of course, he's talking about it at the time as if we're going to do it to another nation's, big people. But, but of course, that's how they always talk, right? And I think when the guy was talking that he believes it. Like he sounds like he believes that our government is ethical. and like he hadn't gotten the memo yet. Of course, he's going to be what they call useful idiots, right? In the active measures program, right? That you got to have your useful idiots who do the legwork, preach the message, do the work, and then once you've got everything you need, you just discard them, right? You know, the Soviets would kill them, other people would jail them, whatever the situation is. But like, it's just crazy. It's crazy. So, you know, and I'm curious, you know, like I'm curious to see, right, like what people think about it and what, you know, where this goes. I mean, this video was done 2 years ago, but it's not the fact that he says this creepy stuff that kind of bugs you out. What bugs you out, all right, is his position. Like, Matthew Lao is not some doo-doo that's just like, you know, working in a house lab in his garage making these crazy statements. Like, the dude's a highly influential individual. And yet, you know, here he is. He's a highly influential individual as well as being heavily linked to the WEF. Like those two things, when someone like that says it, you need to listen. You need to listen, right? And here, you know what? I'm gonna, just in case that first clip got kind of whacked out, I'll play it again with the. You might have heard it okay on your end. I'm not sure, but the portion about making the kids smaller, and I'll replay the portion about making people allergic to meat.
So here's an idea, says Lao at the World Science Festival. Let's fiddle with the human genome to see if we can make human children smaller than they are now. A race of dwarfs. They would eat less, and they'd be cheaper to transport. And that would reduce greenhouse gases.
So it turns out that the larger you are, think of the lifetime sort of greenhouse gas emissions that are required to sort of the energy that's required to transport larger people rather than smaller people, right? But if we're smaller just by 15 centimeters, right? That's a mass. You know, I did the math, and it's about mass reduction of 25%, which is huge. And 100 years ago, we were all on the average smaller, exactly about 15 centimeters smaller, right? So think of just the, you know, like lifetime greenhouse gas emissions if we had smaller children, right? And so that's something that we could do.
Oh, sorry about that. Look at where this guy is, right? So this is where I would test in this software. I got to get used to it, folks. I just need better habits. But all right, so I got someone on Twitch now saying, I don't understand how what that person said was bad. So here's what's bad about it, okay? Here's what's bad about it. What's bad about it is you've got centralized global organizations who are now considering messing with the human genome at will for menial gains. Menial gains. Okay? I don't know what the dollar amount that would, like, what if they got shorter but then they got fatter? Like they're just using humanity as test subjects. No one would willingly sign up to have their children born 15 centimeters shorter. Or whatever the measurement was that he's saying. No, so that means it has to be forced into people. Or this isn't even something that's worth discussing. And that's creepy as hell. Again, if someone's going to stand there and be like, you know, hey, I don't have a problem with that. Screw it. Like I said, if you're that much in depth into the climate cult, where it's like, well, we can save the planet if we just genetically alter humans to be smaller. I mean, why on earth would we want to genetically alter human beings to be smaller? It just makes it's just mad scientist crap. And look, he's saying if my children would have a better life, why wouldn't I want that? They're not going to have a better life. They're not. They're just going to be 15 centimeters, whatever it is, shorter. assuming everything works just exactly as it should, because your children will be test subjects, essentially, their life's not going to be any better. Which version of the 12 years to doom are we on now? Where are we at in the latest one? It should be resetting soon, isn't it? Make people shorter to frickin' save the planet. It's idiocy. It's lunacy. And the people, like the fact that that's so, and it's not the only lunacy that's going on. It's just the climate piece. They've been trying this climate thing. I mean, first we were freezing, then it was the ozone layer, then it just goes on and on. Then it was global warming. Oh, wait, we're getting cooler. It's climate change. Like, I'm just done with it. I'm done with it. Everybody wants to do good by the planet, but these people are idiots. Now they're asking me, all right, so I don't have the comments to put up on the screen, folks, so I just got to, like, throw this out there. But I'm being asked, so I don't believe in climate change at all. No, the climate, I'm sure, is changing. I'm sure the climate is changing. Like, what I'm saying is we're not doomed. We're not facing an imminent doom that we now have to succumb to a centralized power in order to save the world. That's not going to happen, okay? That's not... If the climate is going to change... Look, if the polar caps melted completely, we're talking about losing some Florida coastline, around the world. You're going to lose some coastline, all right? But it's not like fire and brimstone and humanity ends. Let's just start tinkering with the human genome. Let's just start experimenting on everything, so we could slow down climate change in the next. Like, understanding where the technological advances are coming right now and how far we are away. I mean, it's not going to be long before fusion is fully discovered and usable. In which case, all of this madness about solar and everything, and I have solar, but all this madness about it, like, you got to do it now, got to do it right now, it's an urgency, that kind of urgency is not needed. Every 12 years, we're resetting. It's not like that. You're not looking at this in your lifetime, folks. And that's if you're in your mid-20s. The fact that they were successfully able to scare the living crap out of, like, 2 generations, at some point, though, you got to realize that, like, the timelines they're giving you, like the models that they make. Show me a model. Show me a scientific model predicting the future that has ever been right, ever, on any subject, that predicted the future 10, 20, 30 years out. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. Because they're always wrong. And the reason they're always wrong is because they don't have data. You don't know what... Human innovation is always why they're wrong. Almost always. Because they can't fathom at the time they're making these models what new innovations will be out. They can't fathom it. And oil was a perfect example. They were scaring us in the 70s. We're going to run out of oil. It's a finite resource. The fossil fuels are dead. Blah, 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 blah. And then they start creating all these new creative ways to extract oil. People discover new oil. And next thing you know, here we are, 50, 60 years later, and we got plenty. We got so much that we get the luxury of listening to dootadoos be like, you can't drill here, on massive freaking massive places, even though the drilling now is so far above and beyond what it was then. But we still do it. And in the end, it doesn't really matter. These people have no place making those decisions. And frankly speaking, again, no one's going to volunteer for it. No one's volunteering to take a shot to make them aversive to meat and doom them to eating bugs. Like, that's just not, or mealworm shakes. No one's signing up for that. So like everything else Marxism does, it will have to force you. And I listen to these coconuts tell me about friggin', Marxism's never really been tried. That's my favorite one. And they tell you like they're serious. Marxism has never really been tried. It's these perverted versions of it by these tyrants. It's like, It's like the tyrants don't make the Marxism. The Marxism makes the tyrants. That's absolutely right. We got a comment on Twitch. I don't need to take a shot to make me not eat meat. I can voluntarily not eat meat. But you won't. Or maybe you're a vegan and you do. But if you're not a vegan or a vegetarian or whatever, you won't. No one's going to voluntarily sign up for that. But it's okay because they can human engineer it. We got a comment from YouTube. Did Rightstream Media teach you that? I don't even know what that is. So no. What that is, I'm not really sure. I talked about quite a bit in the last 42 minutes. So at least when I wasn't on mute. So I don't know, Larry, what do you mean that? And Rightstream Media. Like in the end, I got done talking about people don't trust any media, and for good reason, right? For good reason. I mean, part of the path in doing a channel and trying, like part of the path that I ended up going down, which I appreciate now that I have the skill set to do, is to be able to discern BS. So he got specific: Newsmax, OAN, Fox News. No, I don't watch those. I don't. Tucker is no longer with Fox. I didn't really watch him when he was with Fox either, but towards not long before he got thrown off, I kind of started seeing that he was catching on to the BS as well. And he's probably been doing it for longer than I caught on. But like, there was a point for Tucker. Tucker used to be the bow tie guy who was carrying the water, believed in the Iraq War, believed in, just follow the line, man. He's like Hannity, right? Just follow the line and didn't really do a lot of thinking. And when I say that, I mean like myself. Like I used to buy into all that stuff as well. I used to buy into, I used to think, well, the Patriot Act, we need it, man. It's gonna protect us, And I could speak for New York, New York and New Jersey, which is where I was living during 9/11. I was raised there. The sentiment was pretty clear across. Everyone likes to Monday morning quarterback now, but back then, when those attacks were fresh, nobody had a problem with the Patriot. There were a handful, a small, minute handful. Although today, everyone's like, I always knew this was bad. No, you didn't. And I could say that with a hit rate of about 95%. Very few people. Even with the Iraq War. Democrats, Republicans, the whole bird, right? Two wings, one bird. The whole bird was headed down there. The whole bird. And we all believed there were weapons of mass destruction. And then even after the weapons of mass destruction, weren't there. And there were, and I mean, historically, we know there obviously was gas there at one point because he used it on the Kurds. But it clearly had been transported out of the country before we got there. How long before, who the hell knows. But if we couldn't find it, it was gone. And likely ended up in Syria, where the next person to use it. Who knows? But that's all neither here nor there. The point is there were no nukes, and even if they found the gas, that wasn't a threat to the United States. So what the hell were we doing there? But that's all hindsight. Like at the time, I was all in. So more comments from YouTube. Let me see. All right. So Larry on YouTube, what would I consider a good source of information? Over the course of time, right, I try to look, there's nobody out there that I'm going to listen to and not validate. I'll say that first. So everyone falls under the must be validated category. But I do tend to look for people who have been right over the course of time because they have a track record, right? Because whatever research they're setting their teams to do, right, then they're being effective because the stuff that they're saying, whether at the time they're saying it or years later, tends to come true. Glenn Beck would be in that category, okay? Glenn Beck would be in that category. I don't know anyone, people talk all the stuff about stuff that Alex Jones nailed, and I didn't even know till recently when I saw that clip of him calling the shot on 9/11. But these are people that are out there who really, really get down and read the nitty-gritty on source materials. And like they don't, these aren't predictions that they come up with out of thin air. These are things that they do a ton of research on to find. And when I hear something, or if I'm reading a book and I see something, and I find it interesting, I don't just go and regurgitate it. I go find out about it. I go read whatever materials I can find on it. You know, Convention of States was a perfect example. Convention of States, I came on and I didn't know what I knew what it was, right? I understood that it was the article in our Constitution that allows for amendments. I didn't know the details about how calling the second clause of it worked, because it's never been used. But I went out, I started, and I'm listening to people like John Birch Society and George Soros organizations and all the people, you know, the League of Women Voters and all these people who are bashing it. And I heard them out, and then I listened to all the people that were for it, and I heard them out. And then I started reading the source documents. And I got one side telling me, you know what? And this is the process for everything, right? You got one side telling me the Constitutional Convention was a runaway convention, and they weren't within their commissions to write the Constitution. And they knew it. And I'm like, what? So I moved on to the Federalist Papers, and I started reading Federalist Paper 40. Madison breaks down exactly why they understood that it was within their commissions to do what they did in that convention. So then I got a choice. Do I believe John Birch Society and these other organizations, or do I believe James Madison? Like, I'm going to go with James Madison all day long, right? In that scenario. So, yeah, so now, see, like, Larry's just getting insulting now. He's like, oh, well, you're a research mom's basement Republican. First of all, F the Republicans. If you're still living in that Democrat and Republican world, I can't even have this conversation with you. Like, if you still think that there are Democrats and Republicans and they're opposed to each other, and it's all about getting the right one picked, oh, if we just get, you know, Joe Biden or Gavin Newsom, or if we just get Trump in office, that'll save the country. I can't help you from that. Like, if you're in that matrix, like, if you're still there and just insulting everybody who tries to tell you otherwise, like, if that's where you're at, I can't help you with that. There's a lot of people there. I can tell you that. There are a lot of people right now who believe that if we get Trump elected, it's going to, like, fix the country somehow. When in reality, it's just going to fix the border crisis and maybe a handful of other things. But for the most part, no matter who gets elected, our economy, there will be a financial crisis of epic proportion, because we're already on the path to $36 trillion. That didn't slow down with Trump, Reagan, Bush. It didn't slow down with any Republican I've ever seen. And it sure as hell ain't going to slow down with Marxists in office. And, you know, we live in this world right now where everybody's like, "Oh, well, you don't believe in the Marxist philosophy? Like you're not a climate cult. You're a denier. You're a denier. You deny it." Like, when you get into those modes, dude, like, people are that's why I did the pieces on mass formation. You know, Solomon Ash's conformity studies. You will find, you know, there's about 30% of the population, and it really ranges from 25 to 35. But 30 is the mid number. It ranges of people who are just absolutely bought in, lock and barrel to friggin' to all of the friggin' media hype. They're built in. It's baked in. They're buying it. They're not selling. And I can't help those people. And I'm not interested in trying to help them. Those people, you know, because rational thought doesn't enter those people. Like, even if they had conclusive evidence, even if, you know, these government scientists who keep telling them all these bullshit statistics, even if those guys stepped up and went, yeah, we were full of it. That was pretty wild, though, right? Even if they did it, you wouldn't believe it. There's no changing that mind. As Yuri Bezmenov said, like, once that process is complete, they're contaminated. They're programmed to react to a certain response a certain way, and there is no getting them to do otherwise. Big Bird's over on Twitch, or Big Brido 9000. What's been engineered? So we were showing clips. I actually had another. I was going to re-show the second one. We're showing clips of this guy Matthew Lao, who has been he right now is one of the world's most influential bioethicists. He's now running a global ethics committee, which the WEF is actually utilizing. And he was captured in 2016 having these conversations, and he's apparently had them, more currently than that. But this one became big because it's on video, and he was at the World Science Fair, I believe it was, and talking about how they could engineer humans to help save the planet, right? And clearly he's a cultist, as far as my opinion. Not someone who just thinks we need to do good for the environment, but someone who thinks like we'll sacrifice anything, to help the environment. One of those people. And two of the things that he mentioned was utilizing or engineering an enzyme to make people allergic to meat, or like aversive to meat. And the other was to actually engineer people to have shorter children so that they would not eat as much and they would not be as heavy when being transported, etc. It's just really wild, stupid stuff. But here's the meat one. Did it not? I thought I fixed this already.
So here's an idea, says Lao.
All right, I thought I addressed it. Apparently, I did not. Still working on this new software. I'm using this Streamlabs. I was using some web-based stuff before, and let me just... Let me try and get this thing right.
So here's an idea, says...
It will not start. I cannot get the video to start, and I have no idea why. It is in there. Anyway. Let's see if it works now. Nope, still nothing. So... nothing I could do. Anyway, he gets into this whole piece. He's talking about there's ticks, where like there's a disease that ticks carry, that if you get bitten by it, it actually makes you aversive to eating meat. He's basically saying we can replicate that and bioengineer it so that it can be administered to people. How, he doesn't get into detail. But the fact that they're even out there thinking about it at that level of global government, of global, organization, is creepy as freaking hell. And the fact that this guy who has these creepy ideas is the head of the largest bioethics committee in the world is also creepy as hell. And that's all I'm saying. You can take it wherever you want. I'm not telling you that, it's in your food or it's, whatever. I'm telling you there's a dude out there in a very high position who contemplates this stuff and considers this stuff. And that was 5 years ago. So, yeah, and yeah, you're right. They do that, and this is coming from Twitch again, saying they do all types of crazy stuff. Yeah, and I did another piece on stuff that they were researching in DARPA regarding, influencing people's freaking heads and like getting people to literally change opinions, and like they were calling it nanoscience of the brain or something. I forget what it was, but they were basically like little brain manipulating nanobots that they can inject into you and change the way that you think. I mean, it was just wild stuff. You can put it in somebody and trigger it to make them feel sick whenever you want, and then untrigger it when you don't want them to feel sick. I mean, just like, why would people be out there working on this stuff? Only evil works on this stuff. Only evil. There's no Jesus in anybody's life like that. there's no... You could bet these people are all atheists. I'm not saying all atheists are evil, but I'm saying people on this level are definitely, it's a situation where I think even the good atheists are going to be like, yeah, that dude's a little creepy. So... I don't know what memetics are, but that was from Larry on YouTube. Yeah, so I mean, look. And then we got a comment also on Twitch saying 7 years ago this guy gets on stage, Tucker hypes him up, and now you're. I didn't find out about him from Tucker, okay, but when I did go looking for him so I could hear stuff that he said and get better clips, because the only clip that was readily available was the one of him talking about meat. So when I tried to get better, I didn't clip that video for Tucker's sake. I clipped that video because it was a better quote from Matthew Lao that I was able to find. Because even though it was in the same conference, the whole conference I was not able to find. Now, I'm sure it's out there somewhere, and I'm sure, you know, that people with better tools and teams and things like that, you know, will pull the whole thing up, or somebody, you know, it's not, you know, it's not like it's unthinkable to pull it up. I needed clips of it to demonstrate what I was reading, because I'm not going to get on a video and just put up text and and show an article or something, or you know, show some source document or research paper, like, and just float it by the screen. Like, I wanted you to hear the person that I'm talking about say it. And Tucker, apparently, after, unbeknownst to me, because I didn't watch Tucker, because I didn't watch Fox, Tucker had this, talked about this guy and was on this. Clearly, it didn't get a lot of play because I had no idea. Now I do, and I'm sharing it with the rest of the folks at the think tank. Like, that's, you know, if you want to get on and be like, well, I knew about this guy, well, all right, great. You know, like, the idea is that not everybody did. And for those that didn't, you know, this is worth, knowing that there's a creepy guy at this level out there is worth knowing. Right? I'm not sitting here. This is not, you know, I'm not Alex Jones level, right? I don't do this for a living. I don't have every day to just sit down and research. I have a career. I have a family. I have a second career starting now. All right. This channel is something that I do, you know, as a passion, as something I enjoy. While I'm monetized on Facebook, I'm also heavily freaking shadow banned on Facebook. And there are rare moments where they unleash the chains, and I try to produce some videos during that time. But it's hard to determine when that is. Like, you know, you just notice that your older videos are starting to get more views, because when they shadow ban you, it's not like just the video that you're doing, it's your whole channel. So, like, you just notice your whole channel go almost dark. And then at some point, you know, a month, sometimes it's a couple of weeks, suddenly you start seeing these notifications, like you're getting all these views on your older videos, and you're like, oh. It's a game, right? I mean, if I wanted to get paid on this, I would do a cooking channel or something. I would love to do some barbecue. Love to do that. All right, let me see what we got here. I got Twitch and YouTube active. Sorry I can't highlight the chat box, guys. It's really bothering me, but I just, for the life of me, cannot figure out why. It is not. I got all these chats coming in, and normally I would have put them up, you know, even the ones that insult me. I'm good with those too. In my first rodeo, people get, if you're not insulting anybody, if you're not pissing anyone off, you don't stand for anything. All right, I'm going to give one more shot while I'm on here, because I would hate to waste the opportunity and then not be able to... So let me know, guys, if you're seeing at any point here, messages pop up on the screen. They don't even show in the demo. Like, I don't understand what these people, I don't even understand. It says you're just supposed to put it in, and you put it into your scene, and it's supposed to work, but it doesn't work, and I don't understand that there. All right, folks. So, hey, guys, I appreciate everybody who commented. I appreciate everyone who engaged with this broadcast. This is not normal for me to just kind of pop up like this with no intro and, no backdrop, no nothing. I saw this. I wanted to put some clips together and just have the conversation. I just thought it was meaningful. I thought it was something that people could walk away with. I'll try to put together like a quick produced video, with some different clips of different people saying different things and such on the topic, just to give you a little bit of fodder to go do your own, for those of you, and I know many of those who follow the channel do that. They tend to go out and look for stuff on their own. So this is just a seed to kind of get you going, right? And get you down that path to start looking things and finding things and share with me, right? I know on Facebook, a lot of people message me, a lot of people from the think tank message me and will give me ideas from all over the world too. I know we got Canada, I had Kazakhstan in here and New Zealand and UK and Australia. So like wherever you're from, because we're all in this mess together. This WEF mess is everybody's in, right? I mean, in the end, right, there in the United States, right, no Democrats, no Republicans. There's Americans and there are Marxists. That's it. And the Americans can be both Democrat and Republican voters. The machines are different, but the voters, the voting population, right? And then you've got Marxists. Marxists cannot be American by definition. The very essence of their belief system is the opposite of everything that it is to be American. So that's what you have. That's what you have. And you have that globally, okay? And you obviously they're not Americans globally, but whatever, free peoples, right? And you're talking on a global scale. There are people who love individual liberty, and then there are Marxists. And so this battle will continue. In the United States, I know the Marxists are greatly outnumbered. Some countries that may not be the case. They're smaller, or they don't have the same, specific passion for individual liberty. They believe in collectives and things like that. But they still love liberty, and they are not Marxists. So with that, I will leave it be. Let me just take a last look. Let's see. So, all right. So, Big Brado, we're talking about height. So, the idea, at least he was talking about height, because he was talking about, he was saying like 15 centimeters or something like that. He had a specific range that he was thinking of. Obviously, a science like that is not going to come out exactly whatever your target is. So the test subjects, which is what they will be, right? Well, I mean, they can come out as, they can come out as dwarfs.
Such excellent and admirable hobbits.
Yes, they can come out like excellent and admirable hobbits. That's what everybody is criticizing and saying, this guy wants to make hobbits. But in the end, look, it's just going too far. It's taken something that, like climate change. All right, so the climate's changing, right? It was global warming, but they realized it's not necessarily always warming. It was getting colder for 10 years. So they changed the name to climate change, which covers anything. So the climate is changing. Okay. Let's start tinkering with the human genome. That'll fix it. Like, how about planting some more trees? I mean, come on. At some point, you got to realize when they're talking about cow farts and stuff, it's like, come on, dude. You think that cow farts and the fact can exist separately from the fact that they don't want you eating meat? Like, no. They just don't want you eating meat, so therefore cow farts will kill you. Actually, planting trees does do shit. And that being said, there's an argument to be made that there are already enough trees to counterbalance the CO2. Like the idea that your breath is a hazard to the earth. I mean, there's a part of this that's just trolling almost. There really is. There's a part of it that's just trolling. Right, I can get down with like industrial, you want to try and clean that stuff up, and I get that. But like when they start getting into cow farts and stuff, I don't have patience for that. Like I just stop. It's not gonna happen. It's not gonna happen. That's cult behavior. It makes no sense, and people just freaking cling on to it anyway. And they cling on to these scientists. Like, give me a scientist. If a scientist has any government affiliation, I'm not interested in what he has to say. I mean, I believe the majority of them don't. But the only ones you see on the news do, right? And I think Fauci was a great example of what an expert, right? What a government expert can be. These people, you know, you had the email gate where they friggin' are telling you in their own emails that they're fudging numbers to make them work because it didn't make it look bad enough. But nobody cares. Nobody cares about that stuff that got swept under the rug, underreported. Look, climate changing, sure. Is it, you know, an epidemic that we have to take care of right now or we're all going to die? No, it's not. Settle down. It's going to be okay. All right. So on that note, I will leave you on the note that it's going to be okay because it's Christmas weekend and, you know, it is a time for happiness and joy, right? And, you know, Christ is born. Even though it may not be the exact day and we don't know the exact day, we celebrate it now. And you know, to those of faith, you know, enjoy your weekend. To those who do not have faith, like, you know, I know the Jewish population are big on Chinese food in the movies during Christmas. So check those out. But either way, have a great weekend. Merry Christmas, everyone. And I think I got this software figured out to the point where we can start rolling with this, despite its flaws. At least it stayed together for the most part, and the problems were all mine. All right, so inappropriate innuendo, thank you. Big Brido, thank you. Anne-Marie's probably gone by now. Larry, thank you. And, you know, everyone who commented, I appreciate you. I am trying hard to get this set so I can get the comments up on the screen again. But, you know, it's a work in progress. So until next time, folks, I'll be on Wednesday night, 5:30 p.m. as always. Any questions on Article 5, Convention of States, let me know. It is the way to save this